warm welcome from my side to our event on Turkey's approach to security challenges of the South Caucasus countries. This is the third and final event in a serial on Turkey's role in the South Caucasus in a cooperation with GIP, Georgian Institute of Politics, with HBS, Heinrich Boell Foundation, South Caucasus office. My name is Stefan Meister. I'm head of the Heinrich Boell South Caucasus office, which is the German Green Political Foundation working in all three countries of the region. Our main idea in supporting this project is to strengthen research and discussion on key regional powers in the South Caucasus. And this year it is Turkey, where we think this is really a very crucial actor in the region. And with this, we want to improve expertise and the quality of the political and public discussion on key foreign policy issues in Georgia and in the South Caucasus. We supported also several research papers who have been published with GIP on different issues. You can find them on the website, and we have had 3 events. This is now the final event also to discuss parts of these publications. I'm very happy that we managed to have a regional cooperation with researchers from Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. So this is not only Georgia focused, but this is also about the 3 countries in the region. This last event is on security politics in the South Caucasus and Turkey's role. And I think this is the key topic. So that's why we do it maybe as the last event, as the main topic for the region. And I think it's very timely with regard to the recent outbreak of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Security is the key to all developments in the South Caucasus. And Turkey, as a NATO member, is a key player here in the region in terms of, for instance, training of Georgian military or also weapons supply to some countries in the region. This is also about the regional conflict zones. I think always in this region about Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and Nagorno-Karabakh, where external players also have a role. Here, Russia is the key security player in the region, and both Turkey and Russia have their special interests in the Black Sea region. So we added also to this discussion the Black Sea region, because I think this is very crucial what happens at the moment in this region, with a strong impact also on the South Caucasus. Turkey is more and more active in Syria, Libya, and the Mediterranean Sea, which also has an impact on the wider South Caucasus and Black Sea region. Yeah, we see in the changing activities of this key player. And I think we need to discuss this also in the South Caucasus. I'm especially happy that we have an excellent Russian colleague also here who will focus on the changing situation and Russia's policy with regard to the Black Sea region. This is also the reason is also there was in the last sessions always a demand to discuss the Turkey-Russia angle in the region more. Yeah, that's why we also invited someone from Russia here. We observe not only on the southern border of Ukraine, but also in the Black Sea, a changing balance of the security situation where Russia plays a key role, but with impact on Turkey-Russia relations and on the South Caucasus. I guess we will definitely discuss the latest escalation in the Armenian-Azerbaijani relations, where Turkey clearly positioned itself on the side of Azerbaijan, while Russia was very careful to give not up its role as a so-called honest bargainer, whatever it means. Coming from an EU member state, all this is very crucial for the neighborhood policy of the EU. And even if the EU is less hard than a soft security player in the region, there is a strong attention on these changes we are facing. Finally, again, I would like to thank GIP for this cooperation, for setting up this event. I think it was really a very successful cooperation. And I would like to hand over to Richard Giragosian, the director of the Regional Studies Center in Yerevan, for the moderation of this event.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I want to welcome all participants, and I'm especially excited that we have 4 especially insightful speakers. Each speaker will give a brief presentation for up to, but not over 10 minutes. And we will be examining a number of issues, looking at Turkey's approach to security challenges in the South Caucasus countries. Going first today is Dr. Nona Mikalidze, the head of the Eastern Europe and Eurasia program at the International Affairs Institute in Rome. She will be followed by our friend, Dr. Mithat Çelikpala, the professor of Department of International Relations from Kadir Has University in Istanbul. Then we will turn to Dr. Tiona Akubaria, an associate professor at the Open University of Georgia. And finally, a well-respected and very prominent independent military journalist, Alexander Goltz, will join us for the fourth and final presentation. We also want to note our appreciation for not only the Georgian Institute of Politics and the Heinrich Boell Foundation Tbilisi office, but also to Maria Zaridze, who will be providing translation today for this event. And as a reminder, all participants are welcome to submit questions in the first round in terms of using the Q&A function. We will be collecting and compiling specific questions. It would be more helpful for those asking the written questions to note to which speaker in particular the question is directed. We will follow with a second round of questions as well, given the time allowed for individual participants to ask oral questions. But with this, let me turn to the first of our four speakers today, Dr. Mikalidze. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for the introduction. I wanted to thank also Corneli for inviting me to this discussion. Now, Turkey is a security actor in the Caucasus. In dealing with Turkey as a security actor in the region, we have to consider a number of drivers and factors influencing its approach towards the region, because we know that Turkey's relationship toward the three countries has been developed in the context of its relationship with other major powers like the EU, the US, the NATO, and Russia. So in order to better grasp the approach of Turkey toward the Caucasus, let me just briefly describe also Turkey's relationship with these other major powers and start with this relationship. So many assumed for years that Turkey was automatically going to follow the policy lines that the US, Europe, and NATO wanted. This is not the case anymore. At least this is how we here in Europe perceive Turkey today. Turkish policy has been based on three goals of entering the EU, developing strategic relationship with the US, while also cultivating closer relationship with Russia. In part, Turkey's deepening ties with Russia must be understood in light of the cold shower Ankara has received or perceived as receiving from both the EU in the context of the accession process and the US in the context of the war in Iraq and the Kurdish questions. Another factor to be considered is that the country is highly dependent on imported energy resources from Russia, and this dependence clearly limits Ankara's foreign policy maneuvering. Now, going back to Turkey-West relationship, perhaps the most vivid case of this fractured relationship with the West is the Turkey-NATO broken political cohesion. NATO said that member states are alarmed by Erdogan's walking back on democracy, civil and press freedom, Turkey's unilateral incursions in Syria, in northern Syria, and on its side, Turkey believes that NATO does not fully recognize or address its legitimate security concern when it comes to migration or terrorism. And as we know, Russia quickly capitalized on the fractured NATO-Turkey relationship, offering to assist Turkey in managing Turkey-Syria border and to sell it to Russian equipment, such as the S-400 surface-to-air missile system, which would compromise NATO capabilities and has led to a halt in delivery of F-35 aircraft to Turkey. Turkey's subsequent decisions to enter negotiations with Russia on purchasing the Russia SAO-35 fighter aircraft have reinforced concern that Turkey has little interest in maintaining or rebuilding its strategic relationship with NATO. Now, when it comes to Turkey's relationship with the EU, the situation is not much better, with accession negotiations frozen since June 2018. The EU has to deal with many issues, such as the Syrian refugees in Turkey, the expulsion of jihadists of EU origin, Turkey's continuous drilling operations around Cyprus. Now, Turkey's involvement in Libya, so the perception in Europe is that Turkey is becoming more nationalistic, Turkey-centered, and foreign policy has become less Western-oriented, more EU and US hostile. Now, coming to the South Caucasus, since early 19th, Ankara has been an important strategic, economic, and political actor in the South Caucasus. Turkey's regional role has mainly taken the form of trade and cooperation in international energy projects, and has by linguistic, ethnic, religious bonds tying Turkey to Azerbaijan or other Central Asian countries, for example. Ankara has attributed great importance to guaranteeing access to Caspian energy resources, as well as creating secure transport routes for the distribution of Caspian oil products to the Western market by supporting energy projects like Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum, or Baku-Tbilisi-Kars. Turkey has also aimed to play kind of political role in the region. So Turkey, as a regional actor with close ties with the major power in the region, is confronted now with the challenges driven by the foreign policy choices Ankara has to make in the face of Russian assertiveness in the region, and opportunities generated Turkey's potential role as a moderator or broker in providing in the conflicts of South Caucasus, and today we see that it's not possible. So bearing this context in mind, now let's make three main sets of questions to this discussion. The first is, how does Ankara think it can handle the competition between two geopolitical axes that have emerged? On the one side, NATO, and Turkey as a NATO member, develops military cooperation with the two Black Sea countries, and let's bring Ukraine into this discussion, so Georgia and Ukraine, while on the other side, Turkey builds political strategic partnership with Russia. The second question is, so the second question emerges when it comes to the development of energy corridor in the region. On the one side, Turkey supporting Southern Gas Corridor, and on the other side, it develops bilateral energy relations with Moscow, including nuclear power plant in the port of Mersin, which is built by Russia and will further increase. And the Turk Stream consensus to give the possibility to Russia to build the Turk Stream, which will increase Turkey's energy links with Russia. When it comes to the territorial conflict in the South Caucasus, but also let's include again here Ukraine as a country of the Black Sea region. How are the relationship between South Caucasus country, between Turkey and Ukraine and Russia balance? What are the relations with Georgia in a context where Ankara was or is still engaging? For example, de facto Abkhazia, or what is its relationship with Armenia and Azerbaijan when it comes to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict? Now, as for the first set of questions, we know that Ankara officially supports the Euro-Atlantic aspirations of Georgia and Ukraine. However, Turkey has adopted somewhat a cautious approach to territorial conflicts in the region. Indeed, the deepening Ukrainian crisis has put Turkey in a difficult diplomatic position now with Russia. During the Russian annexation of Crimea, at stake were, on the one hand, Ankara's commitments to its Western allies and its cultural kin, the Crimean Tatars, and on the other, its economic and political relationship with Moscow. Ankara has remained passive to defend the rights of the Muslim Turkish Tatars, which have opposed the Russian annexation of Crimea. Furthermore, also Turkey has supported Ukraine's territorial integrity in all official declarations. Statements regarding Crimea have been made without mentioning Russia's name. And in contrast to the US, Canada, Australia, Japan, Switzerland, Norway, and of course the EU, Turkey did not apply any bilateral sanctions against Russia. Ankara's position has been ambiguous, not only toward the war in Ukraine, but also towards the Georgian war back in 2008, when Ankara effectively blocked the path of NATO Mistral in the Black Sea, making appeal to the 1936 Montreal Convention during the Five-Day War. More generally, Turkey has been ambiguous toward the Georgian-Abkhaz conflict, even though Ankara does not recognize the independence of de facto Abkhazia, it still maintains economic relations with it, what actually is prohibited by the law on occupation adopted by the Georgian government. Now, coming to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, and Stefan already mentioned that Turkey officially supports Azerbaijan in this conflict. Sure, there have been some official statements about this, but we all remember how ended up, for example, so-called Turkish-Armenian rapprochement and border opening between the two back in 2009, when Ankara stopped the process in order to not to upset Azerbaijan. And back then, Erdogan was adamant in saying that if you want to resolve a Turkish-Armenian issue, you have to resolve Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And finally, as for Turkey, Russia, South Caucasus triangle, Turkey has always put its economic interests before the political strategies. So the private sector has played a very important, significant role in this approach. Does not, on the one hand, it tries to reduce its dependence on the Russian gas by building the TANAP, for example, but on the other hand, it has granted Moscow with the possibility to increase its energy supply through a Turkish stream. And it is clear that Turkey's dependence on important resources limits the margin of its maneuvering when it comes to the security and foreign policy in the South Caucasus or towards Ukraine, for that matter. The dependence, we know that it amounts to nearly 74% of imported energy resources. So in this context, a partnership-like relationship between Turkey and Georgia, Turkey and Azerbaijan, or Turkey and Ukraine will most likely remain kind of subordinated to the Ankara-Moscow relationship. And at the same time, bearing in mind that the harmonization, like complete harmonization of Turkish policies in the region with those of Russia are unlikely, it is highly unexpected that Ankara will develop a kind of security strategy for the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an especially refreshing but realistic assessment, looking at both the limits of policy options for Turkey, but also acknowledging the subordination of the broader strategic relationship between Ankara and Moscow. Now we will turn to Dr. Çelikbala from Kadir Has University for his assessment.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard. It's also my pleasure to be part of it. I would like to thank you, Henry Boell Stiftung, and of course, Georgian Institute of Politics. It's a chance to discuss those issues. We almost forget about the Caucasus in Turkey mostly. Just the latest developments between Azerbaijan and Armenia reminded us that our Turkey's environment, security environment, and foreign policy decisions are much more important for many actors, and therefore it is important to understand the environment. Before myself, Dr. Mikelice, draw a kind of a broader picture of analysis of Turkish position, and it's very complicated, in fact, last couple of years, how to analyze and understand Turkey internally and externally, of course. It's not easy to analyze and understand Turkey's domestic politics, as well as very linked with this domestic politics in the international politics, the position of Turkey in this international politics. Many experts in Turkey as well asking themselves, we are asking ourselves the question, what's the purpose of Turkish foreign policy making, or what's the purpose of Turkish security policy? And as it was mentioned, last couple of years, it's expanded. We are just thinking and talking about much broader areas, from the Caucasus, the Caspian region, maybe it's better, and the Black Sea, up to the Eastern Mediterranean. And western borders of Eastern Mediterranean means almost the middle of the Mediterranean Sea itself, which is Libya, and of course France and Italy, and more than that, Turkey's relations with Israel, and of course and Syrian and Iraqi issues, and Turkish-Iranian relations. Therefore, it's not easy to understand and analyze Turkish foreign policy making and Turkey's security priorities. And there are very many criticisms from our Western allies, as well as Russia as well, and many of domestic criticisms also raising the issue that populism and nationalism colored with religious extremism affects Turkey's foreign policy perspective and domestic policy. We see much more authoritarian Turkey. These are the discussions, but how can you just blame Turkey and Turkey's decision makers to act as if they are the populists or nationalists? And when you look at around all those regions that I just mentioned, you see the increasing amount of nationalism, populism, and of course colored with religious priorities. And then each and every nation turns they inside and try to develop their own national interests and priorities. And we lost the confidence, and of course and more stable regions, not only in the Caucasus, but in all those regions. And when you go to and check the Turkish Foreign Ministry's current webpage, you see a synopsis. It titles Turkey's Enterprising and Humanitarian Foreign Policy. This is funny title, but this is the perspective that the Turkish foreign policy makers are still trying to show themselves how to develop their policies. In this synopsis, it is mentioned that at a time of volatile and uncertainties on the world stage, our policies adapt to constant changes and strive to shape the dynamics around us towards peace, prosperity, and stability. You see these words, peace, prosperity, and stability, but the international environment is volatile and there are many uncertainties. The priority reflects how to develop a foreign policy priorities and how to shape new environment. Therefore, you have to go back to Turkey's last couple of decades and try to understand the changes, all those security perspectives. I should say, first of all, it was mentioned before as well, Turkey is a NATO member country, G20 member country, an accession candidate to the EU. And this is very important. And still in the Foreign Ministry's webpage, you see those connections as a priority. It is true that it is much more complicated, and Turkey is trying to develop its own security environment. And how to do it? And there is an extensive, Turkey developed kind of an extensive network of cooperation, including high-level cooperation councils with 25 countries as well. And the Caucasus is one of those sub-regions as well. And Turkish, Georgian, and Azerbaijani cooperation, trilateral cooperation council is one of those best examples. And Turkey maintains close ties with the countries in the Balkans, the Middle East, North Africa, Southern Caucasus, South and Central Asia as well. And therefore, there is a strategic axis of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia in the Caucasus. And it reflects the Turkey's intentions to establish or construct a kind of prosperous, pluralistic, and modern region. which is in favor of Euro-Atlantic alliance. And it is the defined and mentioned policy and priority of Turkey since the establishment or the collapse of the Soviet Union. Therefore, this is not a surprise. And in this axis, we have just, and Turkey was trying to, before then, Turkey was trying to bring those Georgia and Azerbaijan as a NATO member country, as a G20 member country, and of course, European Union accession member country, trying to link Georgia and Azerbaijan to this side for a long period of time. And then afterwards, we see many developments. And the Trabzon Declaration of June 2012 is a turning point. And you may find some clues of what's happening in those days in all those regions or environment of Turkey from those declarations. It has focused on the improvement of common political, economic, and commercial interests, as well as the collective and peaceful resolution of regional security issues via the establishment of a strategic partnership. Now, after almost 10 years, a decade, those three actors managed to establish a kind of a cooperation network and a kind of a strategic partnership. And when you go through again this document, there is a clue. It says that this trilateral cooperation is a political framework aimed at the realization of a relevant projects in the triangular area, encompassing from the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea. It's so pity in those days, of course, in all those regions or sub-regions or basins, we have security issues. And those security issues are very much important for Turkey and all those regional actors. And they gain a kind of a precedence over those kind of a cooperation and other kind of networks. For example, the three countries intend to create a strategic area, both within the Southern Caucasus as well as interaction with the Caspian, the Mediterranean and the Black Sea Basin. While, for example, Azerbaijan is a strategic relevance stems from its boundary with the Caspian Basin. For Georgia and Turkey, the Black Sea is the key. And while for Turkey, it is the link to the Mediterranean, and which is very important, not only trade and security connections, as well as energy and all kinds of relations. That means much more expanded relationship between those three actors, as well as all those regional and global actors. What makes Turkey different, for example, after the 2016, the plane incident, for example, now Russia is a near factor in all those developments. Beforehand, when we are talking about Turkey, Georgia, and Azerbaijani axis in the Caucasus, Russia was the other. Now, Russia is not another actor for Turkey, most probably, but both actors have some experience and historical experience, and of course, a kind of a baggage not to trust each other. Russia and Turkey have their own interests on the field, but for the first time, most probably, last 3 decades, last couple of years, they managed to get together and to discuss those issues. Of course, both parties have not a kind of a similar vision to structure not only the Caucasus but the Black Sea region. But on the other hand, they get together time to time and find some ways to resolve those issues. And this resolution means not an end result to all those issues, especially in the Caucasus. Still, they are contradicting to each other. They time to time work together. In, for example, Syria, maybe they may find some ways and means to agree on Libyan issue, or they may discuss the issues in the Black Sea region. But I have to remind you, all of you, that Turkey is still a NATO member country. Turkey is the only actor, for example, most probably taking part in all those activities or NATO activities, a regional actor. Most probably we may name Georgia and Bulgaria in all those sea breeze activities, for example. But on the other hand, Turkey is standing itself with all those issues, in all those issues with the Western actors. From this perspective, right, Turkey is still a NATO member country, is still have a mindset as a Western actor, but much more balanced actor, I have to say. But what is happening in the Caucasus? This is much more important. It was mentioned. I may clear my comments after questions, most probably, but I would like to say that what is the position in Turkey in terms of security concerns? Turkey, for example, helps Azerbaijan and Georgia to restructure or strengthen their military or army as a NATO member country. There are many signed agreements, and Turkey links Georgia and Azerbaijan to Europe via all those lines. And Nona mentioned this energy issues, for example. It's also a priority for Turkey still. And in Turkey's Caucasus, most probably last 2 or 3 decades, Armenia is the other. This is very clear cut. But this is the case from the Armenian side as well. For example, Turkey's very currently published Armenian Security Council new security strategy, for example. It was introduced by Armenia's National Security Council, I guess in July the 10th. It's very clear. It says that Turkey is characterized as a security threat, while its potential assistance to Azerbaijan during the outbreak of a war is characterized as a politically problematic. And this is the perspective from the Armenian side. Therefore, parties lost each other last decade, and last 20, 15 years, together with Azerbaijan and Georgia, Turkey is defining its own Caucasus or Southern Caucasus region. And time to try, it gets together with Iran to find some ways and means to establish much broader context of cooperation. And time to time, get together with Russia to discuss Caucasus-related issues. But I don't see any potential for Turkey as a sole actor or regional actor to resolve all those issues. And this is the case for the other actors. What's missing is Turkey acted together with Western actors, the United States and NATO member countries, as well as EU countries, to resolve those issues, but we have nothing in our hand. And at the end, Turkey's its own problems with the EU neighboring countries or our EU partners is an issue. Therefore, most probably, to conclude, I have to say that in the coming days, most probably because of what's happening in the Mediterranean and of course in the Middle East, we are going to face with some other big issues. Not in NATO, because I don't see a NATO factor, because you know what's happening between Turkey and Greece is very harsh in those days. All the Turkish authorities are concerned with what's happening in the southern part of Turkey now in the Mediterranean. But you see all those big actors, especially Germany and of course the others, UK and the US, are very closely observing what's happening in the region. Therefore, we may find some ways, and the parties, not only Turkey, but the EU itself, has to take one step back and think twice. What's happening, or what they offer to Turkey and the regions, not only the Caucasus, but the Black Sea, Mediterranean, and the Middle East. What do they offer? How can set the table to discuss? This is not the way, for example, to attract Turkey on the table with a French attitude. Therefore, we have to think a couple of times. And it seems that that's true. We have more assertive and more autonomous Turkish decision-making processes in Turkey. We, as a Turkish citizen, and you, as our neighbors, like it or not, but this is the case now in Turkey. And the threat perception is so urgent, and this survival mode is very effective in Turkey in all those decision-making processes. We have to think and consider from this perspective. In this line, Azerbaijan is a priority. There is no question mark, and we have to think twice. Therefore, we have a decision last week from the National Security Council of Turkey, and this is very serious. And therefore, most probably Turkey will act as if the Azerbaijani side has to be satisfied. Therefore, in the absence of any improvement in Armenian-Azerbaijani relations, any progress to be achieved within the Turkish-Armenian normalization process alone would remain insufficient and will not be lasting and sustainable. Therefore, we are going to face with a kind of a new stock in this Caucasus, but currently Turkey's priorities are much more in the south and maybe partly in the Black Sea region as well. Therefore, we have to be careful, and I'm gonna give some insight, try to insight on valid points, and then afterwards with questions, I may try to clarify myself as well. Thank you very much for the chance that I have.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was, for me, especially frustrating because although I agree with you, it makes me very hard to be optimistic going forward. But I do welcome your very candid assessment. Before we turn to the next speaker, one reminder to our roughly 50 participants. We do welcome the opportunity for specific questions. Please use the Q&A, the question and answer function, and submit your written brief questions. And please identify to which speaker, if any. But now we will turn to Dr. Tiona Akubaria from the Open University of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to join your webinar, and I'm grateful to Corneli as well for inviting. I've been listening carefully. And it's really complex issue, but I want to highlight with this topic of the discussion, which is about how these pragmatic relations of Russia and Turkey, what does it mean for the security of the region? And when we talk about the pragmatic relations with Russia and Turkey, we should bear in mind the history which is behind that pragmatic relations, and there have been many kind of wars between Russia and Turkey, and they have been historic rivalries for centuries. And this new phase of this pragmatic relationship started in 2015 after the crisis in Syria. Despite this several meetings of the presidents of the two countries, there have been also difficulties between relationship of Russia and Turkey. Especially it is very visible in Syria, in Idlib province, and in Libya as well. I want to mention what it means for the South Caucasus. Despite this pragmatic relationship, again, Turkey didn't change its interest in the region, and it remains the same. The main interest is energy issue, which is a key issue in the Turkish policy since the beginning, and it is a main priority. Ankara has a balanced relation with the three countries of South Caucasus, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia. But for many reasons, Turkey's policy in the South Caucasus is still determined by its relationship with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, as we know, is a strategic partner of Turkey as well as Georgia. And during this crisis between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Turkey reiterated its political and military support to Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. Despite this pragmatic relationship, Turkey supports the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Georgia. It also should be mentioned that in Turkey there are Abkhaz minorities, it's very important to have this support from Turkey for Georgia's territorial integrity. Turkey is also the main economic partner of Georgia, especially with the private investments. The main cooperation with Turkey and strategic partnership is also because of the energy issues and the project with Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. It's also this Kars, Tbilisi, Baku-Kars railway project, and also supplying the gas through TAP and TANAP projects to Turkey and to Europe. There were no compromises in terms of this principal issues from Turkey towards the Georgia or towards Azerbaijan and Crimea as well, as we see. In terms of the importance and for the region, the main importance from the Georgian perspective, it is also a NATO issue. Georgia is striving towards NATO integration and membership, and Turkey is the main supporter of Georgia on that path with the statements. Black Sea is very important, and when we talk about the region, understanding now the Black Sea region is very important, and the annexation of Crimea shifted the strategic balance on the Black Sea. I would like to mention also these problems with Russia and Turkey, which is also very visible in Georgia. Despite this pragmatic relationship, what we see in Georgia, it is this narrative that Turkey is occupant rather than Russia. We see this anti-West and anti-Turkish propaganda also, and it is related to the West, and it is related to the Turkey as well. So for Georgia, Turkey is a very important NATO ally and strategic partner, and for Georgia, Turkey is also the way to NATO membership, which is very important. Also, we see this kind of manipulations and disinformation regarding the Kars agreement, and we have the political parties who use the anti-Turk narratives in line with the anti-West messages, and we see this rivalry in Georgia with Russia and Turkey in terms of their geopolitical interests, which is a very important issue, and I don't see any kind of bargain policy in that regard. In terms of the seeking the power balance in the region, it's very important for the security of the region not to have a dominant influence of Russia in region, and it's very important also for Turkey to maintain Georgia's foreign policy priority, which is European and Euro-Atlantic integration. In my opinion, the current complex situation with regard of the Syria and Idlib, and with regard of the Western West and its position towards Turkey, it is now very important to have the balance of power in the region, and it's very important that Turkey, as a NATO country, cooperates closely with the Western countries in terms of this Black Sea security and in terms of the supporting the peace and stability in the region. That's all what I wanted to have, and I'll prefer to talk about more to answer your questions after the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiona. Now we'll turn to our fourth speaker, and we are receiving some written questions, but we do welcome more, depending on participants' interest. But now let us turn to the well-respected, prominent, independent military journalist, Alexander Goltz.
Hello to everybody. I prefer to concentrate on Russian military buildup in region, which influenced dramatically different relationship with different countries. Before 2014, Russian patriotic analysts use the same trick, trying to complain about degradation of Russian force in a southern region, especially Black Sea Fleet. They said, okay, look, our fleet now is much smaller than Turkey, and we cannot resist not all NATO countries, but Turkey itself. Now things changed dramatically. After Crimean annexation and in 2014, Russia undertook tremendous military buildup in southern region. I will give you just few facts and figures. You understand the level of this militarization. For example, in these 6 years, Black Sea Fleet received 5 new submarines, armed with caliber missiles with a range 2.5 thousand kilometers. At the same time, Black Sea Fleet got 3 new, absolutely modern frigates with the same caliber missiles. Also, Crimea Shore Defense Brigade was deployed in Crimea, armed with Boell and Bastion shore defense systems with a range from 400 to 600 kilometers. Special Air Defense Division also is deployed on Crimea Peninsula with S-400 and S-300 systems again. And these two factors, shore defense brigades, together with air defense division, permit Russia to evaluate, to deploy access denial region with a range something like 400 kilometers. Also, we have a naval infantry brigade in Crimea, together with a few divisions deployed on Black Sea shore. It's paratroop division in Novorossiysk, also 105th Infantry Division, and for 42nd Division in Chechnya. So we have bulk of military force concentrated in the region. The question is, what is the goal of this ultra mobilization? I don't share the views that these forces are orientated for local conflict with neighboring countries. To be honest, Russia, before this militarization, Russia had enough forces to win any local conflict with neighboring countries. The problem is, and the main goal of Russia forces is, that after Crimean annexation, together with war in Donbass, NATO made a very clear decision about raising its military presence in Black Sea. So what we have now, we have approximately 100 days each year. We have a group of NATO ships in Black Sea. I'm not speaking about ships of NATO countries which are Black Sea countries. I'm speaking about special groups which comes from Mediterranean. So Russia, none of country in the world accepted the Crimean annexation. So one of the biggest challenges, military challenges for Russia is that in fact it has no other instruments to defend Crimea except military might. So Russia permanently is scared of attempts to take over Crimea. Second, maybe most important thing, Russia is scared of possibilities, of abilities of American destroyers, which comes to Black Sea, together with abilities of base missile defense base deployed in Romania. As you know, Mr. Putin suspects that one day Americans can change interceptors in these launching systems with cruise missiles. And let's not forget that each American destroyer have something like 50 cruise missiles on board. And the biggest nightmare for Mr. Putin is that one day NATO will undertake sudden strike against Sochi, his residence, with cruise missiles. So the main purpose of this access denial region, air defense together with shore defense, is defend Sochi and our third capital from sudden strike. Third military challenge and military goal. Of course, Russia wants to participate, to take, to become again. It's a big question. Was Russia or Soviet Union in the past factor in Mediterranean or not? But now Russia wants to be a real actor in Mediterranean. So all these forces have to support Russian operations in Syria and Mediterranean in general. And as we saw during Syrian operations, all the bulk of forces that participated in this operation moved from Crimea, moved from south of Russia. It's quite natural. If we look at a level of battle readiness of these forces, I have to say that this level is rather high. Recently, I looked at timetable of military exercises of southern military districts. I have to say that these exercises are conducted on mostly permanent level. Air defense exercises turn to naval infantry exercises, then paratroopers exercises, and all other things. Just recently, Russia conducted so-called SNAP inspection, which included, listen, 150,000 men. It's real strategic exercise. And what is important to stress, the main goal of this exercise is to check the ability of strategic deployment forces from Baltic region, even from Pacific Fleet in southern region. So to conclude this part, Russia is preparing for big war, and no Turkey, neither other neighboring countries are the possible aims of this war. Russia is thinking in terms of confrontation with NATO and the United States, especially in this southern region. Speaking about a relationship with Turkey, for me, I agree. It's something, if try to describe this relationship in two words, it's a rivalry slash cooperation. Yes, Russia sometimes we have a real rivalry between Russia and Turkey, if to speak about situation in Syria and Libya. Recently, Turkish drones attacked Russian produced air defense systems, and I can give you huge amount of examples when Turkey is confronting Russia through parts it supported in these different countries. But at the same time, we have to conclude that never this rivalry, these competitions comes to dangerous zone, because cooperation, especially cooperation in military field, my colleagues touched the question of air defense system S-400. Let me say that such arms deals are very important to show the level of cooperation. It's not only because Turkey wants to show something to the United States. When we speak about strategic air defense, it's something very specific, which gives chance to speak about very prolonged military relations between two countries. So, and of course, Russia is more than happy to see all these contradictions between Ankara and Brussels, Ankara and United States. So it gives Russia at least theoretical chance that in case of confrontation, Turkey will be very cautious to give its NATO alliances opportunity to reach Black Sea. It's very important, I think. That's all.
Thank you very much for both an insightful sketch of Russian naval power projection in the Black Sea, as well as Russian aspirations to become more of a Mediterranean power. I think it's fair to say, if we weren't concerned with the earlier presentations, we should be especially worried hearing your contribution. But now I want to turn over to Givi Silagadze to begin with the round of question and answers.
Thank you very much. It was really, really interesting and illuminating. We have 7 questions, and I will ask all 7 of them at once. And I have to say that some questions were quite lengthy, so I had to kind of reformulate it, and I'm sorry to attendees for that if I missed something. So first question to Dr. Nona Michelidze. Could you say a few words on the role of neo-Ottomanism and realpolitik in Turkey's foreign policy towards its neighborhood? For instance, prioritizing certain actors in the region. Second question is directed towards Dr. Mithat Tselikpala, but other speakers can answer as well. The author of this question mentions the recent escalation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What do you think about the view that Russia stands behind this escalation, since it's not interested in the EU initiatives, for instance, the Southern Gas Corridor? And more generally, what are the drivers, internal as well as external, of this escalation? Third question goes to all panelists. Given the existing exclusion of Armenia from regional projects due to the conflicts and the lack of cooperation in the region, how do you see Georgia's position and role in solving the conflicts of the South Caucasus? Fourth question is from Nina Samparadze to Georgian speakers only. Turkey, with having an intensive relations with Abkhazia, do you see any perspective for Georgia to use the Georgian-Turkish cooperation in order to balance the Russian presence there? Fifth question is directed towards all the speakers. How do you see Turkey's role in European security in the context of tougher US-Germany relations, and how will it impact on Georgia's performance in cooperation with NATO? And the last question is to Mr. Dr. Tselikpala. It's about the prospects of normalization between Turkey and Armenia. In case it is possible, what do you think? How could the Turkey-Armenian normalization influence the security of the South Caucasus region? That's all. Thank you very much.
Shall I start? Okay, now the question on neo-Ottomanism. You know, back in 2002, when AKP, Justice and Development Party came to power together with Erdogan, it was clear that there could have been ideological influences on the policy, but neo-Ottoman culture reflected more on the domestic trends. I mean, Erdogan tried more to develop the domestic social and political policy along following the line of neo-Ottomanism. Then we remember that that had been period of Ahmet Davutoglu as a foreign minister from 2009 to 2014, and he avoided to use neo-Ottomanism as a foreign policy approach, and we all remember his slogan like zero problems with the neighbors. But then after 2014, what we see indeed, this is kind of revival also of neo-Ottomanism also in Turkish foreign policy, and we see it by Turkey strengthening its positions and posture in global south, meaning Mediterranean, Middle East, and all this accompanied by irritating relationship with the Western actors. Now, from the Euro's perspective and from Western perspective, it looks quite irrational. But then I understood that maybe from Erdogan's perspective, in order to strengthen local power, it has for sure its rationality. Then I'm not a Turkey expert. My Turkey colleague knows it better. Maybe he can comment on this.
Thank you. Before we turn to Mithat to answer his questions, also a reminder to participants for the next round of questions, you could use the raised hand feature and pose your oral question directly. But Mithat, let me turn to you.
Thank you, Richard. I have a couple of questions that I went through and then try to combine the answers, in fact, to utilize the time in a better way. First of all, I would like to start with this, how the EU perceives Turkey and the security issues in all those regions. I have to say that there is no unified or common European security and foreign policy priorities and interests towards, not only towards the Caucasus, but towards the Black Sea, towards the Eastern Mediterranean, even towards Libya. And this is the reason why Turkey is now very harshly criticized by some EU member countries, but on the other hand, working together with the others. This is much more complicated issue. And this exclusivist or non-inclusive attitude of European Union ended such a kind of a result from Turkish perspective. And for the first time, last 2 decades, I have to say that in Turkey, some nationalist groups, Ottomanists, religious Islamists, and we call them as statist groups, all come together when those issues are raised in Turkey to defend Turkey's position. Therefore, it's much more complicated, and I don't see EU, at least in short notice, as a constructive actor in resolving all those issues from the Caucasus up to Libya, from Eastern Mediterranean up to Aegean whatsoever. And this anti-Turkish narrative is so strong and it's not a constructive approach to attract Turkey to negotiate. And then we see much more assertive and autonomous Turkey in all those areas and trying to resolve those issues. And we see expanded perimeter of Turkey's security and foreign policy making areas. I don't know whether it is Turkey's capacity and capability to serve and to respond all those threats and to offer some resolutions in all those, how can I say, clashes in all those regions. But Turkey has some priorities, and those priorities bring Turkey as much more active actor on all those regions. And just follow the Turkey's defense minister's visits, very current visits. He flew to Libya, then to Ukraine, then afterwards to Qatar, and tried to bring Russian partners and the US, and trying to be active in NATO. And now Turkey set all those priorities last 2 years or 3 years since the coup d'etat, I have to say, on the security issues and acting and thinking on a kind of a survival mode. And this is the reason why the Kurdish issue now is not a domestic issue for Turkey. Kurdish issue is a much bigger issue for Turkey now. In Iraq, in Syria, in the Caucasus as well as and the other regions. And it's an important issue. What is the Turkey's domestic issue now? Is how to restructure the state now. Because, 2 years ago, Turkey left a kind of parliamentary administrative structure of almost 80, 90 years. Now we have very strong, a kind of a presidential system, and it has some direct effect on security and the foreign policy making and other kind of discussions and decisions. This is the reason why you see much more authoritarian, much more closed, and a little bit undemocratic country. And this is a transitional period, and domestic clashes are so harsh within the country itself. And then there are a couple of partners. For example, Russia is a close partner to us. Why? Because you can negotiate with Russia. We don't have the same interests in Syria, in Eastern Mediterranean, in the Caucasus, in the Black Sea region. But parties may get together and negotiate and to move forward. We are on the verge of our connections. This is my personal belief, because we have not a common vision to resolve all those issues in all those regions, in the Caucasus, in the Mediterranean, whatsoever. But the parties move forward. You can discuss those issues. Most probably you may see a kind of an agreement or transitional agreement between Turkey and Russia in Libya as well, in the Eastern Mediterranean as well. This is not a surprise from my side, for example. And this links us this energy issue as well. And this is also closely related with the current Azerbaijani-Armenian discussion, whether there is a Russian involvement behind the escalation or not. I don't know exactly, technically. It's almost impossible to understand it, because this is a far away from region from Nagorno-Karabakh and other regions. And many people in Turkey believe in the discussion that the region is hosting the pipelines whatsoever. But in those days, we have oil and gas glut, and the prices are so low, it's almost impossible for any of those actors in the Eastern Mediterranean or in Central Asia, in Russia, to invest in new pipelines and in new infrastructure. And the prices are so low, and the European interest is so low. Therefore, there is no need from Russian side to evolve from this perspective and to give some messages, both Turkey and Azerbaijan or Georgia. We already said, I saw a question from my colleague, a Turkish colleague as well, the role of Georgia, for example. I'm the defender of this position last couple of decades. Georgia is much more important for Turkey than Azerbaijan. Because when you lose Georgia from Turkish perspective, you cannot reach out to Azerbaijan or Central Asian Turkic republics as well. And it's almost impossible to reconstruct or construct an infrastructure of trade, energy, and whatsoever. And therefore, it is very important for Turkey to bring Georgia and Azerbaijan to EU, to Turkey, or to the Western side as well. Of course, it's a good thing if we can find some joint or common way together with Russia to find a resolution. This might be a good thing, and it's a prospect. Just last word regarding this Abkhaz and Georgia's territorial integrity issue, because many speakers just touch upon it. From Turkish perspective, still, we have a strong Abkhazian and Circassian diaspora, and they are very active in all of, but, Georgian territorial integrity has an utmost importance for Turkey, just because of the reason that I mentioned in just a couple of minutes, including Azerbaijani territory as well. And then from then on, we need to see Georgia and Azerbaijan territorial integrity a priority. Of course, Turkey's interaction with the Abkhazian side is very behind the behind the curtains. It's very active. They are traveling to each other via Sochi and the Russian territories, and Russians are much more relaxed in terms of those kind of visits and agreements between the parties, but state, officially, Turkish state never let it. And we discussed, I remember in Georgia a couple of times, where there is a possibility to utilize Turkey's role and effectiveness in Abkhazia to find some ways, but I don't think that the parties are ready to see such a kind of a actor within the region itself. First of all, Abkhazians and Georgians need to get together and find some ways. And then comes, lastly, the Azerbaijani, Turkish-Armenian rapprochement. It's a dead end now. Under current circumstances, sorry, Richard, we discussed many times this issue, but the leaders killed all those possibilities almost a couple of years ago. And then Turkey just linked the issue to Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization, and Armenian side attached the issue to genocide issue. And then if you just bring such a kind of preconditions, and all of us now, it's almost impossible, especially under the current circumstances. Turkey removed those barriers. We lost Americans, and on this genocide discussion, we lost European connections, and there is no pressure on Turkey to recognize the genocide officially. And if you start to discuss the issue, starting from this genocide in Turkey, the current Turkey, you have no chance, because it's non-starter. And for us, the Armenian side, most probably, if you are just pushing or linking the issue to the resolution of Azerbaijani-Armenian issue, Nagorno-Karabakh issue, and then you go nowhere. Therefore, it's almost a dead end, and I don't see, I'm very sorry, but any prospect currently and in the midterm even for the normalization.
Richard.
Thank you very much.
Richard, can I add a few words to my colleague about the role of Russia?
Please do.
Sure.
Okay, I must say that the worst nightmare for Russia is a big war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. For decades, Russia armed both sides, thinking that it was playing a game of British Empire of 19th century, arming both conflicting sides, and this way keeping balance, military balance between them. If speaking theoretically, in a moment when clashes began, Russia had to support its CSTO alliance, Armenia. Let me remind you that also Russia has two sides agreements between Armenia and Russia on particular on defense of Armenian borders. So, but at the same time, of course, Russia has very broad relations, and these relations include very good military cooperation with Azerbaijan. Russia sold Azerbaijan armament for something like $3 billion the last year. 100 tanks, air defense systems, and everything. So again, war, I think all ideas that Russia can be a player in this war are absolutely wrong. Again, Russia, the worst nightmare of Russia is a big war there, because if it happens, Russia, wants it or not, have to choose side. And it will be end of all Russian politics in Southern Caucasus, I think.
Thank you very much for adding that. Before we turn to the second round, beginning with Stefan's question, we did have a couple of questions directed to the Georgian presenters. So let me turn to Tiona and Nona if they want to add anything more.
Yeah, I would like to respond to Noyan Soyak's question about conditions and contexts of the Georgia's position or role for the solution of the conflicts and disagreements in the South Caucasus. You know that Georgia has very important agreements and important role for the conflict resolution in terms of the
You are muted, Tiona, sorry.
Yeah, so Georgia's main goal is to have peace and stability in the region, and we have the obligations toward Armenia and Azerbaijan. Both we have the strategic partnership with Azerbaijan, and we support the peaceful solution of the conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. In terms of the leadership in this process, unfortunately, there were some attempts to have more active role in the peace process. Nowadays, this leadership is decreased, and interest of Georgia is to have peace again. And it's not because the question was about Georgia gaining from this conflict situation. Georgia is not the country creating this, supporting the conflict, and the situation which is now we are having, it's not suitable for Georgia as well. I mean, if the conflict will re-escalate, I fully agree with Mr. Alexander, it will be total disaster for Georgia as well, because it will be a direct threat over Georgia's national security as well, not only for Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as Turkey, which is a partner of Azerbaijan and supported its political and military support towards Azerbaijan. So the position of Georgia, it is that we support the peace and stability in the region, and we also support the projects which are very important for the region in terms of the security, because this whether it is a Baku-Kars railway, whether it is an energy pipeline which goes through the Georgia territory, it brings also peace and stability in the region. So that's the position in terms of the Georgia's role in the conflict. And there was also another question regarding Georgia, I guess. Just let me check. It was a question related to Turkey's role in over the conflict of the Georgian conflicts. Firstly, it is Russian occupied forces standing in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So this is a problem of Georgia and Russian revisionist policy in there. Can Turkey play a positive role? Also, it's very important for Georgia's supporting NATO integration. But in the current context, there are established formats for this conflict resolution between Georgia and Russia, international formats, which is Geneva talks, and this is very important to have the international support for peaceful solution of the conflict. But therefore, we see the problems of Russia's creeping annexation and borderization, and more assertive Russia towards Georgia's territorial integrity, because it's not the process is not finished, and Russia continues its using the hybrid tactics, hybrid warfare tactics against Georgia's interests. So in this context, I think that the main issue is to have support of our partners, strategic partners, and the West to solve the conflict in a peaceful way. But the problem is Russia's political assertion that it's not willing to support this process. So there were some attempts after the war from Turkey about this communication of the peace talks, but now we have the main formats, and it's very important to have our partners to support Georgia's territorial integrity and to support the peace process, which is very important for further development of the, not only Georgia's security, but also for the region.
Thank you. Nona, did you have anything to add from the Georgian questions?
Yes. So let me comment on Alexandra's remark about whether Russia is behind or not current military escalation in Nagorno-Karabakh. And he mentioned that full-scale military conflict would be a nightmare for Russia. I agree. But let's mention also that for Russia, it's a nightmare to see democratic Armenia in the South Caucasus. Having said that, I don't think that Russia is behind the escalation. But I think that for Russia, it's problematic to see democratic Armenia in the South Caucasus. Now, coming to other questions regarding Turkey playing kind of mediator between Georgia, role between Georgia and Abkhazia, you know, according to Abkhaz sources, about 60% of imported products came from Turkey. And back in 2009 and 10, there have been several ships captured by Georgian authorities, Turkish ships in the Black Sea. And then we remember that in 2008, Turkey launched so-called Caucasus Stability and Cooperation Platform. And before that, Süleyman Demirel in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, launched this Caucasus Stability Pact, but then we'll know how all this ended up. So I don't have much hopes for seeing Turkey as a peace broker between Georgia and Abkhazia. And there was also another question about possibility of EU-Turkey security cooperation. Now, security cooperation is an increasingly key area in EU-Turkey relations, and it will only gain further relevance in the near future. If you remember, in December 2017, the European Council adopted a decision establishing permanent structured cooperation called PESCO. It foresees the possibility of number of EU member states to work more closely together in the area of security and defense, and such states could be invited to participate in individual projects. So PESCO could be an opportunity to enhance security relations between EU and Turkey, but then I think what the EU has to do now in order to kind of revise its relationship with Turkey is to start new negotiations on customs union. But I think it's another topic of discussion. Thank you.
Stefan, let me turn to you and bring you in. You had your hand raised, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Looking to the time, I'd reduce myself to two questions. First question to Sasha. Can you explain again the importance of Turkey to Russia? Why is so crucial for Russian strategic thinking, and it's willing to invest also so much in Turkey? And maybe to Mithat and also Sasha, again, what are the limits of this Turkish-Russian cooperation? So where, yeah, you described here this pragmatism, and sure, both are great bargainers, yeah, but we also see a lot of, I think there are also limits, and I just want to ask you both of us, where do you see these limits? Thank you.
Let's turn to Sasha first.
Okay. For me, Turkey is very important for Russia because it's no doubt that in Russian strategic thinking, NATO is main adversary. So, and again, in Russian strategic thinking, US is authoritarian leader in NATO. Any clashes, anything that makes US and NATO weaker, and it's no doubt that our day's conflict between Turkey and NATO and EU and United States, which moved rather far, it's a realization of one of the brightest Russian dreams. Another huge dream was gap between European countries and United States. And as we can see, Mr. Trump is doing all he can to fulfill this dream. So, to be honest, Turkey, from strategic point of view, Turkey doesn't need no American fighters, neither this air defense system. There is no such adversary, if to speak absolutely pragmatically. There is no such adversary for whom to gain victory over which Turkey badly needs such sophisticated equipment. So all these purchases are totally politically motivated. And as well as for Russia, it was not easy choice. Let me say that S-400 is the most sophisticated air defense system for Russia. S-500 is coming, but we don't know what it means. If to speak about available systems, S-400 is the most modernized system for Russia. And it were 1 year talks about purchase such system to China. And look, in this situation, Russia made the decision to sell S-400 to NATO member. And there were a lot of suspicions among Russian experts, in Russian expert community, that NATO can gain some information from this system. But Russia went make such a step in order to make a gap between NATO and Turkey deeper and deeper. And we can say that this move was extremely successful. Again.
Thank you, Sasha. We're going to turn now to Mithat, and then we'll go to Corneli for the next question. But Mithat, feel free.
Yeah, it's very complicated, you know. All those, for example, neo-Ottomanism, fragile state, torn country, those are the labels, or the model country, those are the labels, especially American think tanks put Turkey in all those regions for last 3 decades. And most of the time to time, Turkish authorities or decision makers buy one of those etiquettes to play a role in all those regions and to get some support, Western support, especially American support. And currently, again, Turkey has some serious issues with the EU and the US, but there is no, with some exceptions, no political party or authority in Turkey who thinks that Turkey should leave NATO and forget about its Western link or EU ways and means. Therefore, this is the case. And most probably, this is the limit of Turkish-Russian relations. When the West, especially the US, shows some extra interest towards Turkey's national interest and political perspective in all different regions, then most probably Turkey and Russia have some issues between themselves. This is very pragmatic and practical relations, but it is very fragile as well. Now, Turkey and Russia, partners in Syria, partly in Iraq, in Eastern Mediterranean, and of course, the Black Sea region as well. And time to time, they may negotiate those issues and they may move forward. This is fragile. Why this is fragile? Because, you know, both of those parties fail to establish some kind of an institutionalized relationship between each other. They have no utmost or vital interest, and they have no vision, in fact, in the neighboring regions to shape, for example. Turkey was part of Western network and tried to reshape, let's say, the Caucasus or the Black Sea region to go together with the Western partners. But if you ask the same question, what is the expectation of Turkey and Russia together in Syria, for example? You cannot answer this question, with an exception of, for example, to fight with extremism, radical unions. But the main interests are much more different than each other. For example, Turkey is against Syrian authorities and regime, try to get rid of the ruling elites and prevent Kurdish authorities to be active in the region, and try to expand its security zone through the operation. This is the reason why we have very operational Turkish forces on the field. And Russia was the factor and actor led Turkey to establish this network, for example, in Syria. And this is the case in Eastern Mediterranean. For example, Western partners do not show any interest towards Turkey's expectations on the nuclear energy or constructing extra or alternative pipelines and projects, but Russia responded. And then Turkey cooperated very quickly with Russia. This is the pragmatic aspect of it. And the leader-to-leader relationship is also very effective in these relations. For example, the parties or the institutions, foreign ministries, security ministries, or the officers, bureaucrats, just come to their limits, and they were very ready to clash with each other. But then you see the print of the presidents. They call each other and they get together and to resolve all those issues in a moment. This is a transitional resolution, but it helps the parties to move forward. Then they try to each other. Therefore, this is the limit of Turkish-Russian relations. This is not institutionalized, it was not stable and strong, and they have no common vision at all.
Thank you, Mithat. Since we're running out of time, let's take two questions together. We have one from Corneli, and we have one question from the audience as well. So Corneli, to you, and then we'll take the audience question.
First of all, let me thank you all panelists for excellent points and very interesting discussion. I would like to actually give this question to my good friend Mithat and to touch upon the bilateral relations between Turkey and Georgia. According to the legend, we have a good and strategic kind of links between the two countries, but things have a little bit changed recently, and to say frankly, we need some sort of sincere discussion about this, because if we just pretend that there's nothing going on, then nothing didn't change between two countries for the last, I don't know, several years, I think that would be a very naive assumption. So one of them is about the role of Turkey and in general in the region, and especially its policy toward Georgia. You mentioned here, and exactly that's actually very annoying thing for countries like Georgia, that, you know, kind of Turkey seeks this transactional kind of, you know, relations with Russia. This is exactly what a country like Georgia actually is afraid, because we have not really good history. And for our historical memory, when Turkey and Soviet Russia or Russia Empire when their interests collide, it was at the expense of small countries like Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. So I don't want to speculate there, but this is a really worrying, sentiment for Georgians. And the Turkish leadership, I think they need also understand, and it was not the first time. We also remember that after Russian-Georgia war 2008, Turkish president actually went first to Moscow to talk about the so-called South Caucasus Stability Pact, but they never mentioned in this Stability Pact European Union and United States, which is crucially important for a country like Georgia. If there's a no two major actors there, like European Union and United States, I don't think that you can involve Georgia in any security dialogue. And I think this should be clear for Turkish foreign policy establishment. But sometimes I feel that, this is a little bit, how to say, misunderstood, or they didn't care. Of course, we don't have like open problems right now, but there's certain issues.
Been as moderator. Corneli, we have to keep it brief and bring in the second.
I'll
Let's turn to the audience now. There was a question waiting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for interesting presentations and discussions. My name is David Matsaberidze from Tbilisi State University, Department of International Relations. And the short question basically is a tech question to what Dr. Tselikpala mentioned. My impression was basically we were talking about regional security complexes and changing role of Turkey in these transformative regional security complexes. So, would you trying to say that basically Turkey is trying to position itself at least in two different regional security complexes which became turbulent, and that is the transformative role to maintain its power projection in these two regions? I mean, two different regions, one of the Black Sea and the other one in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Okay, Mithat, as we turn to you, please keep the answer very brief since time is short. And then we'll have just 1 minute last word for each of the speakers.
Okay, Richard, let me try to brief. And those security sectors, those are the sectors, but if you put Turkey at the center, these are Turkey's regions, Turkey's neighboring regions. Turkey is a Caucasian country, Turkey is a Black Sea country, Turkey is a Aegean and Mediterranean country, Turkey is a Black Sea, Middle Eastern country, and Turkey is a Balkan country as well. And if you see Turkey at the heart of those regions, then all of them are Turkey's security complexes or regions. And Turkey needed to respond each and every issue in all those regions, but this is beyond Turkey's capacity. This is the reason now you see Turkish Navy in the Mediterranean and Eastern Aegean, not in the Black Sea. And this is the reason why you see Turkish land forces in Syria and partly in Iraq operating very actively, but they are silent in other regions. Therefore, Turkey's capacity is limited, and Turkey needs to respond to all those issues. Now, currently, Turkish force, how can I see, show off is in the Mediterranean mostly, and in the Middle East. And therefore trying to prevent the other regions from any kind of clashes and issues, but those are Turkey's national security zones. For Corneli, Turkish-Georgian relations, it's very complex historically. And we have a population, Georgian population in Turkey, some of them Muslims, and they protected their identity, and they are part of Turkish politics and very conservative. And then Georgians in Georgia are much more different. These are the issues that we don't like to discuss too much, that's true. And the minorities or Muslim minorities, if you act taking the Muslim population in Georgia as a priority, then this is also an issue. Therefore, parties needed to get together and try to, the issues that they are not a problematic issue between the parties. And this is the reason, most probably, both of those parties concentrated on trade, economy, and energy, and try to link Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Georgia, and it works very effectively. But that's true, Corneli. No one knows what's happening in Georgia domestically in Turkey. No one cares. When it threatens Turkey's relations towards the Caucasus and priorities towards the Caucasus, then it becomes a priority for Turkey. But
okay, I'm going to jump in here. Fortunately, Mithat is a friend, so I can do this. But we're going to now turn to Nona, Tiona, and Sasha for one closing, one word, last say, if you will. Nona first.
Thank you, Richard. Nothing special to add. Let me only stress the importance what Corneli said, that it is absolutely necessary to start a discussion, honest discussion, again, about Georgia-Turkey relations and not try to put the problems under the carpet. Having said that, thank you, Richard, for moderating the panel, and thank you, Corneli and Stefan, for inviting me.
Richard, yes, I fully agree. I will also add that in Georgia, we have this foreign policy priority, which is very important. But this complex relationship of Turkey with US and the West is not suitable for Georgia's interest as well. So if we are talking about the power balance and the peace and stability in the region, it's very important to have the power balance in the region, and it's very important for us that Turkey with the West is doing that power balance with Russia, because Russia has a huge interest and it's more aggressive towards its interest in this so-called sphere of influence, and we see more threats in that regard. So that's the conclusion.
Alexander.
Unfortunately, I must say that we are now moving to a situation of new Cold War. Many people disagree with me at this point, but I want to stress it. So, the Black Sea region is an excellent example of how it looks like. Look, a few days ago, simultaneously, Russian ships and NATO ships conducted exercises. A few weeks ago, 2 American strategic bombers flew over Black Sea region. Next day, 2 Russian strategic bombers moved the same region. This means that any accident can move not only countries of Black Sea, but all countries in the world to something very, very bad. I don't want to say in particular, but the problem is that what we badly need, if we are in situation of new Cold War, to return to positive experience of that time. Name is peaceful coexistence. We should again speak about mutual security measures in order to secure our military activity in the region. I think it's the only thing we can do now.
Thank you. As the third and final public discussion as part of this project of the Georgian Institute of Politics, let's turn finally to Stefan as the Boell Foundation support.
So just a very short final word. I think it is really important not only focus on NATO and EU from a Turkish perspective, but especially focus on the other neighbors which have a strong impact on the region. And I think I'm really happy that we had this focus on Turkey and also to have these really very high quality discussions here in Georgia on Turkey. And our goal is really to go on to look also on Iran's role in the region. And also China's role in the region. I think we should also not underestimate, we haven't mentioned it today. But I think this is crucial for the EU, also from an EU perspective, but I think this is also important to have here improving quality of research, but also of discussion raising awareness of this changing environment and of these countries which have impact on Georgia and on the other South Caucasian countries. So, and I would really like to thank GIP to set this up, and also our mentors from the 3 countries, including Richard, to support us here, and the other speakers. Yeah, I really enjoyed the discussion today.
And also thank you for having an Armenian moderator for a Turkish-focused panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.